Hi, I'm Asher Embers, and this is my video series on how I created my Lilith Vegapunk cosplay. In my previous video, I showed how I constructed the bodysuit, how I made the jacket, and how I made the gloves. And in this video is all about how I made the boots for the Egghead Island arc. I really don't know if they're called Egghead Island boots or dome boots or moon boots. I can't remember, but they are quite difficult. As you can see, they're quite difficult to cosplay. So if you want to know how I created these shoes, then keep on watching. So I started my research by watching how other cosplayers go about making their Egghead cosplays. And the first thing I noticed with these cosplayers is that they struggle to walk. Going deeper in my doom scrolling, I noticed a lot of these cosplayers used a similar pattern for their boots. And the origin of that pattern was Eriza's cosplay, where she made her Egghead Island boots for Nami. And she shared the pattern for it so other people could use it. Now, she made her boots out of EVA foam, which I can understand why. EVA foam is lightweight, flexible, and it's very durable. But I wasn't about to use EVA foam to make these shoes. Okay? I have made cosplay shoes 3 times with this foam, and every time I make a shoe with this foam, with this kind of foam, they break. The most impactful shoe being my Clara Valak cosplay, where I made her slippers out of EVA foam, and I was really happy with them. But then I went to the convention and they broke, and so I had to, at the convention, wear my sock, put hot glue onto the bottom of the shoe, and put my foot inside that hot glue and literally glue the shoe to my sock while wearing it. It was a painful experience, but it was enough to scare me away from ever using EVA foam for shoes ever again. So yeah, EVA foam was out of the question for me. So upon getting reference images for Lilith's costume, I also realized that the dome boot that Lilith has is actually different than the standard Egghead Island cosplay shoe shape. And I'll explain that right here. If you see this image, a lot of the cosplayers will use this because this is the standard moon boot that is shown in the anime, and it's also the only moon boot design that I found that people have the cosplay pattern for. But Lilith's is different. Her moon boot is an actual cylinder. I think Jinbei's is also a cylinder, and Dr. Vegapunk's shoe is also just a pure cylinder with no curve. So I didn't really have a pattern that I could use even if I wanted one. And so I was on my own, back to square one, thinking, okay, how am I gonna do this without EVA foam? And just how am I going to construct this? I continued my research, which was doom scrolling TikTok and seeing how these Egghead Island cosplayers act in said shoes. And one thing I noticed when people walked is that the natural foot movement of these shoes is affecting how these people walk. And I'm gonna try my best to explain this, but it might be a little bit ranty. Eriza used a flip-flop as the base of her shoe, and while she's wearing flat shoes, wearing flat shoes allows you to move your ankle without any restriction. With flip-flops, it allows this free range motion, but with the boot covers, the movement is a little bit restricted. So since the foam is flexible, walking in the shoes is forgiving. But if we take a moment to look at this one clip of me walking, in this video, I am just wearing home slippers and I am walking how I normally walk. You may notice that my heel touches the floor first, and then my whole foot rests on the floor, to which my ankle extends, and then the balls of my feet leave the floor. This is how I walk normally. My ankle moves, okay? When you wear shoes that are flat, you have that free movement in your ankle. That's what I'm trying to talk about, okay? But look at this clip when I'm wearing high heels. My ankle movement is restricted when I wear a high heel, and you have to walk differently when you wear high heels, especially high heels at this height, because you can't rely on your ankle movement to move you that much. You go heel, then toe, and then you raise your foot. You raise your whole foot and then go heel toe again. sometimes you can go to the tip of your toe, but like with these type of shoes, you go heel toe, and the whole foot moves as a whole. So would it be easier if I used a high heel base as my shoe? Why not? I'm not a stranger to wearing high heels at anime conventions. I love wearing high heels, especially when it's the correct type of high heel. The only thing I had to do was figure out how I can make these shoes around the base of a high heel without them breaking. And I needed a very sturdy material if I was going to use high heel wedges. I took a pause. I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just step back. Let me just watch some anime. So when I was watching the Egghead Island episode that came out that week, I really looked at the shoes and I imagined them to be like this sturdy, hard plastic, but also very lightweight. And then it came to me, I could just 3D print these shoes. Since I could make them sturdy, I could make them lightweight, and they're literally just cylinders, so it would be quite simple to print a cylinder. So 3D printing, let's go. I ventured to the thrift store with this in mind, and I found the perfect pair of shoes for this cosplay for $5. When I wear high heels for any occasion, they have to be a minimum of 4.5 inches or higher. It's just more comfortable for me. But they need to have either like a thick heel or be wedges. And they have to have a platform. The platform is what makes having a shoe easy for me to wear, when they have a platform. And I like wedges more than a shoe with a thicker heel. I like these shoes specifically because the top material was a sturdy leather, and that was like sewed into the base of the shoe. So if you remember my Luca Migarine cosplay, I had a similar shaped shoe, but the platform fell off at the convention, so there was like absolutely no way this shoe could break, especially considering that I was going to put it inside of a different contraption. But another thing I liked about these shoes is that they had a side zipper, but they also had 2 buckles, so they were secure enough that they could like attach to my feet, and I wouldn't have to worry about the shoe falling off of my foot because they secured very well. So I'm accustomed to using Blender for 3D modeling, but I'm enrolled in a 3D printing class and a 3D modeling class in university. And this is the first time I use Tinkercad, and it's okay. It's not my favorite, but I did manage to make Vegapunk's shoe. Before I glue any pieces together, I take sandpaper and I buff away the shine so I could have a better adhesion. So to explain Lilith's boots, I have them in 3 different parts, okay? The base of the shoe is going to be this. The way how I have this structured is I have this bottom piece. So it has the 2 circles on the bottom because I love that detail on the shoe, even though no one's going to be looking at the bottom of my shoe. But because this piece, I had to print it in several pieces, I had to take some extra steps to make sure that the shoe wasn't weak. I could stand on this, fine. But meaning that there is a seam right here because I had to print 2 semicircles. I printed this, which will go on here, and reinforce that, make sure that like the shoe won't break, at least from like the weight being pushed onto a weak seam. The plan though is screwing and gluing the shoe to this circle, and then the circle is going to be screwed and glued onto this base, and the screw is going to go through these too, so these are going to be held on with a screw right here, right here, right here, and right here. So we are making sure that I am not going anywhere. And if I go somewhere, it's going to be down, but the shoe is going to be up, still on my feet. That did not make any sense. Okay. Problem that I have with my Vegapunk boot. And it is that this, while it fits inside of here, it fits a little too snug. Like the heel is rubbing against the back here, and I can already sense that like if I put my foot in there, this is gonna probably break because there's not enough room inside of the boot to accommodate for this. And I made this mistake because I didn't take into consideration that this heel, it tapers outwards as it gets taller. And the same thing with the part here. It like, see how it like grows at an angle rather than going straight? So instead of printing a whole new set of boots, I asked my dad if he could file down the boots, and he did. So he straightened this piece out and this piece as well. So if you compare at least these two together, you can see the difference. And sanding it down makes it easier. Like I know that it's gonna be better there. I'm being delusional right now, but I'm gonna see it through to the end, okay? This is a 7-hour print. It just started, okay? I'm gonna pray that's enough filament for that 7-hour print. I'm gonna be delusional, okay? Maybe I'll be surprised. If not, I'm gonna have to order more. While I waited for more parts to print, I tried walking in the shoes and I was not prepared for how tall I was going to be. Now, I'm 5'1", and when I was wearing these shoes, I was at least 5'9", and I was seeing surfaces I've never seen before in my house. But while I was walking, I did notice that I had to add shoe grips to the bottom. We have this much filament left. I think we're gonna make it because there's 2 more minutes left. So being delusional works. Once I had all of my pieces printed, I started assembling the boots. So I took the bottom of the shoe and I glued it to the tube, and while I had the glue still wet, I took tape and I wrapped it around the seam and I left it for a few days. And this stuck together well. I remember I would walk 15 minutes a day wearing these shoes, and I did that for like 3 times. No, I did that for 3 weeks before going to ZenkaiCon 2025. But at the convention, the shoes did break, and I had to fix it at the convention cosplay repair by using duct tape and electrical tape. Now, while the glue worked well, I realized it failed because there wasn't enough surface for the glues to like hold contact. So I realized I needed a physical bond instead of a chemical bond. I went to my local hardware store and I bought these little L-shaped things and these tiny, tiny screws. The small screws were for attaching the hardware to the wall of the shoe, but I did use longer screws to attach the hardware to the bottom of the shoe, since I had 3 inches of platform to work with. But since I designed the walls to be very thin of these boots, I realized I couldn't screw them alone, otherwise it would go through to the other side of the boot. So I used the Sintra as a cushion between the screw and the hardware, and it worked out well. The shoes were secure, and you know what? I was ready to take this cosplay to Animeverse 2025. I wore these boots to Animeverse, and while they didn't break, the screws did come loose, and they were a little bit like rattly because the screws were cutting loose. So I wanted to find a way to make sure that the screws are secure, and the solution was JB Weld. So I have 2 different JB Welds going on here. This one is a putty that you just mix together, and it is like it's like Model Magic or Play-Doh, and you just put it over and it hardens, and it worked, but there was only one of this and I needed more. So now I'm going to be using the JB Weld Original. This one's more of a liquidy formula, I'm told, but apparently I just mix equal parts of these together, put it over the screw, and then I should be good. And let me tell you, those screws are not going anywhere right now. So now we're gonna go back to a clip before ZenkaiCon 2025 and continue making the boot. I recorded one of my walking sessions, and in this clip specifically, I am trying different styles of walking because I realized that the way how the shoes are designed, you have to penguin waddle. Otherwise, you have to penguin waddle. Otherwise, the boots are gonna bump against each other. And so, unless you come up with like your own unique walking style, you have to get used to walking as a penguin, which I'm fine with. I was just experimenting and seeing if there was an easier way of walking, but I was fine with it. What I think is making me struggle a lot is that these aren't really finished because this whole thing is still covered. So once I think I have this covered and I have more stability on the top part of my leg here, that will help. Also, I didn't cut a lot of the PLA on the rim right here, so that's cutting my leg. I don't know if you can see the little plastic. That's cutting into my leg. But other than that, it's not, walking in these shoes is not bad. I'll survive. I got rid of the printed layer lines and the seams by using Bondo, and I used a sandable spray primer. I just gently sanded it down and the boots were nice and smooth. These boots have been spray painted 2 different times. The first time for ZenkaiCon, they were a darker purple, and I wanted them to have a better color match, so I got a different color purple, and before Animeverse, I spray painted them and it was the color that I have right now, and I like it. Now, to make the top leg cuff, I took this purple fabric and I put heat and bond on the lighter color side, and then I used that piece of fabric to cover a piece of 5mm EVA foam. I then used a ladder stitch to close off the cuff, but the stitches did get loose over time, so later on I used a piece of 3mm EVA foam on the inside seam to prevent it from coming loose. Now I'm going to tell you about heat insets, since this is how I'm going to be closing the top part of my boots. Heat insets are these brass screws that have several different outer textures, and once you place a hot soldering iron on top of them, it will heat up the screw and the screw will sink inside of your 3D print, making a cavity where you can put a screw together, and you can put a screw in and screw 2 pieces together. I believe I put 5 screws around the top part of my boot, and then I printed another small section of my boot, which I will call the lid, and with my Dremel I just screwed holes where the heat insets were over, and I just needed screws long enough to reach inside the cavity. I took this stretchy dark purple fabric and I took hot glue and I just covered it up. I cut out another piece of this lighter purple stretch fabric and I just used glue to put it in place. I then added the cuff to the top and I hollowed out the center of the top lid fabric by cutting triangles. And to make sure that the cuff doesn't separate from the lid, I took the triangles and I used resin and glue to secure them to the inside of the cuff. It looks ugly, but no one's gonna be able to see this when I'm wearing it, so I don't care how ugly it looks, so long as it stays in place. Now for the side whistle part, or 9 or 6 part, I just 3D printed them. For the first convention, I had them glued and they fell off and I lost a whistle at ZenkaiCon 2025, so I don't know where that is, but the second time I printed them, I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna screw them in place and just leave them there forever. But now that the shoe is finished, this is my process of how I wear these shoes. So if I'm wearing this to a convention, I'm wearing a special type of sock that has cushioning on the balls of the foot because it makes wearing these shoes for long hours of time more bearable. But the first time I wore this to a convention, I didn't have those special socks and I was fine. it just makes it a more pleasant experience. But I start off by slipping the lid onto my shin, and then I step inside of the shoe. I then have to reach inside the shoe and zip the shoe closed. And then I have to take my mini screwdriver or an Allen wrench, and I just have to secure the screws. When I'm tightening the screws, I make sure to not have them too tight because having it too tight will break the shoe. So I just have to have them tight enough. I have, again, 5 screws around the lid, so the shoe is secure. But when taking them off, it is the same exact process, but in reverse. I never take the screws off all the way. I just loosen it enough to where I can lift the lid, and that's good enough for me. So I'm going to be doing a small Q&A because I have gotten a lot of questions, and so I might as well answer them here, okay? The first question is, are the shoes heavy? The shoes, each boot weighs 5 pounds, and I train legs once a week at the gym, so for me, it's not heavy, especially since I had them well secured to my feet, but the shoes, they're not heavy for me. I feel like they're fine. Are they uncomfortable? They're not uncomfortable the first 3 hours of wearing them, but after standing past 3 hours, the balls of my feet do get a little sore because I'm wearing high heels and I'm not sitting at a convention. So that's why I invested in these special socks that have like cushioning on the balls of the feet, so just to make the shoe just to make the experience more pleasant. But I try to sit down at least like last time I went to a convention at Animeverse, I sat down after 2 hours, so I'm able to like walk distances and you know, enjoy the convention. I just have to sit down every once in a while, but having the socks make it more comfortable. But even if I didn't have the socks, I'm able to wear the shoes. The next question is, how long can you stand before needing to sit down? I already answered this, but yeah, I was able to stand for like about 2 hours, and then I felt the urge to like, I felt myself starting to get tired, so I had to sit down. But I'm able to survive a 12-hour convention. I've survived a 12-hour convention in these shoes. Okay, I can survive. Can you walk stairs? Yes. So at ZenkaiCon, they have this massive staircase, and they do have like no, they don't have a ramp. Those are not as steep stairs, but they're still stairs. But at ZenkaiCon, they do have stairs, and I was able to walk up and down those stairs multiple times. So yeah, I'm happy. How fast can you walk? The pace in the video that you see, that is how fast I can walk. Okay, I'm not going anywhere fast. When we went to Animeverse, my friend wanted to meet J. Michael Tannen, and I'm like, okay, so if you see J. Michael Tannen and you need to abandon me to go see him and like go into his line, abandon me, because I am not going anywhere fast enough. But I mean, it's no different than like my pace when I'm wearing high heels. I just walk slower. But yeah, then again, I'm also, when I wear these shoes, I'm carrying my bubble gun, so yeah, it's fine. I like it. If you have any other questions, I will answer them, but these are the ones I get on social media a lot. If you want to watch how I made my bubble gun, my wig, or my helmet, and how I made my costumes, go look on my channel and find the video that you want to see. And yeah, subscribe. Thank you.